Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental. Even the name kind of, makes you think, audacious maybe. Google DeepMind, I guess, they're back throwing their latest into the ring. Their most intelligent AI model so far, or so they say. I can practically see the internal memos, everyone patting themselves on the back before anything's really been proven. It's climbed to the top of the LMArena leaderboard, that strange little coliseum, where AI models fight for those precious human clicks. A score of, they say, 1443. Interesting, I'll grant you that. But you, dear listener, out there in the trenches of information overload, what does that score really mean for you in practical terms? More to the point, should we be impressed? Or just, taking notes? What do you think? Let's pull back the curtain a bit on this supposed AI triumph, shall we? We're told it can handle, quote, intricate tasks, end quote. And of course it has, quote, enhanced reasoning capabilities, end quote. Buzzwords, right? The siren song of the AI world. But behind the hype, there are actual mechanisms, things actually happening. Take the LMArena leaderboard itself. It's not, just a cold, hard calculation, is it? As I understand, it's all driven by human preference. Millions of users clicking and voting in these head-to-head matchups between different AI models. This ranking system is cooked up by researchers over at UC Berkeley and LMSYS. They use what's called the Bradley-Terry model. Basically, it's a giant ongoing survey asking people, which AI they find more agreeable. So this score, 1443 for Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental, it means that in those digital duels against its rivals like ChatGPT 4 or Grok 3, even Google's own previous attempts, a good chunk of the human judges, they preferred Gemini's responses. And it's not just a tiny victory either. Reports are saying it won by a, quote, notable margin, end quote. This, I think, suggests something more than just, incremental improvement. It hints at maybe a real shift in how we humans are perceiving the very essence, I guess you could say, of the text that these models are generating. If you can believe these digital popularity contests, it's resonating with us, on a deeper level, in that messy human way we communicate. It's not just about spitting out facts or writing clean code. It's about the whole experience of interacting with the AI. A subtle difference, maybe, but important, wouldn't you say? Then we have these pronouncements about, enhanced reasoning capabilities and ability to tackle, as they put it, intricate tasks. Grand claims, no doubt. But luckily, our sources do give us something a bit more concrete to grab onto. Benchmarks. There's this one called Humanity's Last Exam. Rather dramatic, isn't it? This isn't some, easy quiz. It was designed by experts, people at the top of their fields, to really push the limits of human knowledge and reasoning. And Gemini 2.5 Pro apparently scored 18.8% on this without any outside help. Now, 18.8% on its own, maybe that doesn't sound too impressive, but when you compare it to the scores of other leading models, OpenAI's O3 Mini got 14%, GPT 4.5, or rather measly 6.4%, and Anthropic's Claude 3.7 saw an 8.9%. Suddenly it doesn't look so bad. This pretty big difference in performance, it does suggest a real advance in Gemini's ability to wrestle with these complex, knowledge-heavy questions. It's like seeing that quiet kid in the back of the class suddenly acing a test that everyone else has been struggling with. And it's not just general knowledge, is it? There's another benchmark, GPQA Diamond, that focuses specifically on scientific reasoning, across STEM fields and even the humanities. And here again, Gemini 2.5 seems to be doing quite well, scoring 84% on its first try, even beating GPT 4.5. It is worth noting, though, that Claude's 2.7 Sonnet did a bit better when it was allowed to take the test multiple times. This, I think, shows how important it is to look beyond just the flashy headline numbers. The fact that Gemini 2.5 did so well right out of the gate, it suggests a strong initial understanding. The fact that Claude could improve with more tries, well, that raises some interesting questions about how these models actually work. Does one have a better grasp of things immediately, while the other, is better at refining its answers over time? These are the nuances that really help us understand the strengths and weaknesses at play here. One of the more, I guess you could say, buzzed about features of Gemini 2.5 Pro experimental is its so-called native multimodality. This isn't just, tacking on the ability to work with different types of data as an afterthought. It's supposed to be like baked into the model's very architecture. So what does this mean in practice? Well, it suggests a more fluid, more integrated understanding of text, audio, video, images, code, all of it. Instead of having these separate, siloed modules for each type of data and then trying to bridge the gaps, a native multimodal model can, in theory, grasp the connections between them right from the start. Imagine understanding a joke where the humor comes from both the words and the delivery. A truly multimodal system should get it in a way that a system that only sees the text or only hears the audio, wouldn't. This could open the door to a much deeper understanding of the real world, where information, rarely comes in just one neat little package. This holistic approach, it probably helps with, handling different languages too, although our sources don't give us a lot of detailed comparisons on multilingual benchmarks. But the ability to process different data formats together, it probably makes it easier to understand different languages. For example, seeing an image with a caption in another language, it might help a natively multimodal system understand the meaning better than a system that just processes the image and the text separately. But maybe the most eye-catching claim is the sheer size of its context window. Reportedly, it's 1 million tokens, and they're aiming for 2 million in the near future. That's an almost unimaginable amount of information it can supposedly keep in its working memory at any given time. To put that in perspective, most of the other top models are working with much smaller context windows. Only Grok 3 seems to be playing in the same league. So why is this such a potentially revolutionary feature? Well, think of the context window as the model's short-term memory. A much bigger window means it can hold onto and process a lot more information from your initial prompt. This has huge implications for tasks that involve understanding long documents, complicated code, or conversations that go on for a while. Instead of having to break down large inputs into smaller, potentially disconnected chunks, Gemini 2.5 can, at least in theory, keep a much larger part of the puzzle in its mind all at once. And the benchmarks seem to back this up. The MRCR benchmark, which tests long context reading comprehension, it shows Gemini 2.5 doing way better than its rivals when it comes to dealing with massive amounts of text. Scores of 91.5% for 128,000 token context and 83.1% for 1 million tokens are pretty remarkable compared to the others. It almost suggests a fundamental change in how these models are able to process information, moving towards something that more closely resembles how we humans understand complex stories or detailed instructions. Now let's switch gears a bit and talk about its coding skills. Our sources indicate that Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental is quite capable in this area too, although maybe with some interesting quirks depending on the specific coding task. For instance, on the SWBench verified benchmark, which evaluates how well AI agents can evaluate code, it gets a respectable score of 63.8% when they use a custom agent setup. However, it's interesting that it falls a little bit behind Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet on this particular measure. Likewise, when it comes to just generating code, as measured by LiveCodeBench v5, it's actually surpassed by OpenAI's O3 Mini and even Grok 3 Beta. However, it does seem to shine in other areas of coding, especially code editing, where it scored quite well in the Ader Polyglot benchmark, showing that it can handle multiple programming languages. There are also, anecdotal reports from users saying that it's really good at optimizing existing code and managing large code bases, even generating more concise code. This kind of nuanced performance profile suggests that maybe Gemini 2.5's real strengths in coding lie more in understanding, modifying, and integrating code within a larger context, maybe using that huge context window we talked about rather than just generating code from scratch. The story is about it optimizing complex simulations and translating tons of documentation in one go. Those do hint at its practical usefulness in real-world software development. The mention of a custom agent setup for that impressive SWBench score, though, that does make you wonder a bit, doesn't it? It raises the question of whether that score really reflects the model's own abilities or just how clever the specific configuration they used for the evaluation was. This is a crucial point to consider when we're comparing results across different models and benchmarks. Understanding the details of those custom setups is really important if we want to get a more accurate and maybe a little less, shall we say, enthusiastic interpretation of the reported performance. So stepping back a bit and looking at the big picture our sources have given us, what are the key takeaways about Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental? Well, it does seem to have exceptional reasoning skills, a groundbreaking context window that's way bigger than anything we've seen before, true multimodality for a more integrated understanding of data, and strong coding abilities, especially when it comes to tasks involving agents and code editing. Users also seem to prefer its style of output in conversations. But it might not always be the best at just generating code, and the fact that they rely on custom setups for some of its top scores, well, that does warrant a closer look. It seems like a very versatile tool, maybe especially well-suited for those complex, information-heavy tasks where that massive context window can really come into play. But like with any tool that claims to do so much, a healthy dose of critical observation is probably a good idea. Thank you very much for listening. Leave a like and subscribe. Till next time.